Cool.
I just saw Arn.
Yep, Arn, I see that you are on now. Can you hear us?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow, that's great. Hi, guys.
Hey, how are you doing, Arn?
Hi. I'm great, thank you.
Well, I think we can, I know it's a little bit early, but if we want to go ahead and get started, Arn, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and take a few minutes to just tell us why you're running for office.
Thank you. Morning, everyone around Colorado and elsewhere. My name's Arn Menconi, and let's see, I'll start off by saying the reason I'm running is because I'm always filled with righteous indignation at the direction that our country's going, and I'm a true progressive. I was a two-term Eagle County Commissioner from 2001 to 2009. During that time period, I was able to pass a lot of different legislation with kind of like a Republican community on open space, on affordable housing, on the type of green building that we needed, all things that were we'll call it Green New Deal. Republicans tried to recall me twice, once in 2001 to say we shouldn't go into Afghanistan the way we did, and the second time for funding early child care development. I had to really twist arms with Democrats in order to get things that seem like common sense for the voices that don't get heard, who don't know how to play politics like many people with money do. I also, in 1993, started a charity for disadvantaged kids. I was a snowboard instructor in Vail, Colorado, and I felt very blessed. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in the late 60s and early 70s, and I saw a lot of violence, a lot of racism, a lot of destruction from the factories that I lived around, etc. And then all of a sudden I end up in La La Land, where white people run as far as they can and live in guard-gated communities. So I was blessed enough to bring kids from the quote-unquote inner city at the time, and it grew and grew and grew into one of the biggest national organizations of its kind in outdoor sports. It's seen as a leader in youth development, and it went from just getting kids up on top of a mountain to leadership development in terms of social justice. And we had curriculums around it. A dean from Harvard University said I was the guru in outdoor sports programming in the country. I think that the sport was the carrot, and what we had to teach was some version of leadership development. And I've always said there's no such thing as at-risk kids. There's only at-risk adults if they're not giving back to others. I have an MBA from the University of Denver that I got in the mid-90s, and why I bring that up is because when I was being interviewed for getting into the program, the dean said, "Why do you want an MBA?" And I said, "So I know how the enemy thinks." And he laughed and he said, "No, really, why?" And I said, "So I know how the enemy thinks. If I could talk like the corporatists, I could then be the Robin Hood in order to bring resources to those who don't have resources." So I've been very blessed, and I'm a father of a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old that I'm very proud of today, because we drove 4 hours down to Denver yesterday and we participated in the peaceful protests for Black Lives Matter. I've been in many Black Lives Matter protests in New York and D.C. I've been arrested a couple, 2-3 times for stopping endless wars, for stopping the repeal of Obamacare. I've been up to Standing Rock. So this is a great group of people to have an opportunity to talk to, because the AFL-CIO did not endorse me. They endorsed my opponent because of my stance on the Green New Deal. So I'm running in order to wrap it up. I'm running so that we could pass bills. A legislator's job is to write laws to outlaw the problem. And in the state of Colorado, with a Democratic governor, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic House, we are not seeing anything that's aggressive, progressive, in terms of legislation that could eliminate fossil fuels, that could repeal the laws that were put in place in 2005 against undocumented workers, and many other things. And I'm outraged this morning to hear that Governor Polis has authorized the use of the reserve, the Army Reserve, in order to come into Denver and use force against our citizens. I'm not for the violence. I'm not for the burning and things like that. But I also believe that Mayor Hancock and Governor Polis are not joining in and meeting with the people at where they're at. I took my kids there yesterday. It was safe. It was important. It was vital. We did 9 minutes of a lay down in honor of George Floyd, who had to be laid down and lynched, a public lynching in America. So we have to get out in the streets. Thank you. I'm sorry that took so long.
No, that's okay. Just real quick, a follow-up. I know you mentioned you are running in a primary you have a primary opponent. Can you just give us an idea of who is backing him, and then also who do you have? What endorsements have you gotten, and where are you basically? How are you funding your campaign?
Yes, my opponent is Carl Hanlon. He's a water attorney, and he's a lawyer for the town of Glenwood and Silverthorne. I know him. We get along. He's a nice guy, but I don't agree with his centrist politics. And we both ran against each other for U.S. Congress. He's backed by 5 state senators on the Front Range and 2 state representatives here. He's got the AFL-CIO. It definitely feels I can't prove it, but let's just say there's a pattern that the establishment Democrats are supporting him. I am endorsed by the Sunrise Movement. I'm endorsed by the Bernie-crats of Denver. I'm endorsed by Our Revolution, West Slope. I'm endorsed by Josh Fox, Jonathan Singer, local representatives, and if you guys know Ian Thomas Trefoya, different Latino outreach leaders in our state.
Okay, just one final quick question before I open it up for questions from everybody else. You're running for Senate District 8.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the issues that are important in that area, and specifically why you're running for that seat there as Senate District?
Let me describe that Senate District 8 is 7 counties. It's when you go over Eisenhower Pass, it's Summit County, it's north of there, Grand County, and it's Jackson County up to Wyoming. And it goes all the way west to Utah, but it's carved out a little bit. I live in Carbondale, which is near Glenwood Springs, and so it has Carbondale is the largest county, then Summit County, Robb County, Steamboat, Grand County, Rio Blanco, Moffett, and Jackson County. The makeup of the county is mostly white. It's 18% Latina. It's 165,000 people. It's the size of Massachusetts and Connecticut. 1% black. The reason the establishment is supporting Carl Hanlon is because they don't think a moderate could win in this kind of we'll call it demographic, and that they have to act like they're a Democrat in name only. I truly don't agree with that. Bernie won the primary in this district. Jared Polis won the primary in this district. It's always been held by a Republican. Yet out of all of the races in the state of Colorado, mine is seen as the #1 race where I can win and a progressive could get elected. That's not to take anything away. I was with Galena yesterday in Denver. I think she's fantastic. There's some real uphill races on the Front Range, but my opponent and I have both raised about $10,000 each. I do not think a lukewarm, one-dimensional election or campaign will energize the youth, will energize the Latino community, and we'll energize the disenfranchised independents. We're 43% independent. And then it's Republican. I can't remember the number right now. It's called 32, and then 28% Democrat. Mm-hmm. And one last thing, because I was feeling the way when I go through the Eisenhower Tunnel. You know, I ran for U.S. Senate, so I campaigned in the entire state, and I ran for U.S. Congress, and that was 29. And when you go down into Denver, it's a big difference because we're up here and we're kind of like forgotten about. But this is big time for the Green New Deal, because fracking is huge here. And you're not supposed to talk about your stance against fracking if you're a Democrat up here. Even when I tried to propose it as a platform measure in the Garfield County, even the most diehard Bernie-crats wouldn't go for it because they were afraid it would turn off the fact that, you know, people are going to lose jobs. And I keep saying, fracking is a dying industry. It's going bankrupt, folks. We don't even have to talk about banning fracking. We have to talk about how are we going to help invest in renewable.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to others on the call. If you have any questions for Mr. Menconi, then let's
Arn, please.
Yes, Arn. Okay. If you have any questions for Arn, go ahead and speak up.
This is Diane. I have a question, Arn.
Yes.
What do you need from us? I mean, I supported you in 2016, and I believe in you. What do you need from us to help you? Because, you know, your vision of Colorado is my vision of Colorado. So,
thanks, Diane. I hate this. I want to bring you into inside baseball because part of the reason that I run is so I can be sort of like a whistleblower inside of these elections and see what the Democratic Party is really doing and how it plays out. And you know, I'm not running as a radical. I'm not running on a platform. Those were federal races. I'm running to win. I would not jump in this race. I'm on unemployment. I'm on Medicaid. I receive STAMP benefits for my 2 children and I. So it comes down to money. I'm not asking for money, but I want to explain this race, okay? This is pretty typical. A U.S. Senate race is going to need millions of dollars. I think Hickenlooper has $7 million and Romanoff has $2 million. A congressional primary needs about $400,000. This race for me to beat the centrist and kind of tick off the establishment is going to take about $15,000. I've raised maybe $20,000 because there's no major media markets. It's about name recognition. It's about mailers, and some social media in order to get 7,000 votes. So that's part of the reason I ran is because it's so within reach. It's low-hanging fruit. And I've raised $10,000 off of 200 friends and social media. So really, that's one part. The other is trying to share what I'm doing on social media. I've built up a really great social media on Twitter and Facebook over the last 6 years, and trying to get the word out that I'm the true progressive who could actually win a general. And the race in the general, last 2 years, I'm endorsed by Emily Tracy, who ran in this district twice. And she's lost by 7,000 votes against Randy Baumgartner, who had to step down because of sexual harassment claims. And I'd be running against an incumbent Republican who acts very moderate, but he's a climate denier, and he's well liked by many Democrats and nonprofit groups. And so trying to get the word out that we progressives are a movement, because that I find really scares people. You know, we already have, you guys might know Brian Sindall, who's a Bernie Democrat, correct? Well, Brian and I talk every single day. He's built a team of phone bankers, so I could use phone bankers. We've made 1,000 phone calls already. I have people who are donating on graphic design work. I'm trying to make sure that our campaign looks like the coolest, most like just the bomb diggity kind of thing in the state of Colorado to get people excited about it. And then, you know, tell me what you need. Oh, letters to the editor. They're taking letters to the editor for my opponent from Denver and putting it in the paper. So you always need a certain amount of money. You need a certain amount of field operations. We have about 3-4 people doing that. And then I've got some volunteer people who like give me a lot of advice. The campaign manager for Andrew Romanoff's campaign is helping me. I'm a big supporter of Andrew's. I know he's had some controversy, but I've just known Andrew since 2005, and he listens and he changes when people are talking to him. I'm on his environmental policy team. Diane Mintz-Bush, who's her former campaign manager, is helping me and advising me. So I've got I got a really robust team this time.
Oh, good.
Great. All right. Anybody else have a question? Thank you, Diane.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment, and I don't know how much you're involved with your website, but I noticed you're hosting through SiteGround, who I also use, and you don't have SSL turned on. It's super easy to do that, and you can do it free with a thing called Let's Encrypt through their control panel. I mention this because Google will derank you. You'll turn down your SEO if you don't have SSL turned on for your website.
Maybe you can help me because I got the
I can definitely help you with that.
SiteGround, and maybe it's because
SiteGround's
of the
a great
free
hosting
package.
service. I use it myself, so you're doing well there. And you can get the SSL certificate for free with that.
After.
Okay.
Arn, I can put Jeremy, who just mentioned that, I can put him in touch with Birion for your campaign if you'd like. I've got both of their emails. I can.
Yeah, I'm happy to help.
Or you could call me at 970-390-HUGG, H-U-G-G.
Boss Hog.
Okay, so does anybody else have any questions for Arn?
Well, this is Diane again. I do. Arn, you're looking at a very large piece of Colorado, and you know, some very different counties. How is this all piecing together to make a single message? I guess you know, because like I asked, how can we help? But Steamboat and Grand County are very different.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I've called all of the delegates a couple of times. There was a couple hundred phone calls, and Grand County is really supportive of me because they're very supportive of Andrew Romanoff. Actually, Route is a little more, and these are such great generalizations because it's like concentric circles. You know, the parties up here are mostly people like me over 60 with gray hair and white, and then it gets a little more and different and reaches out. I think I'm trying, Jackson County, for example, had 55 people vote in the last primary, Democratic primary, where I think Garfield had maybe 4,000. So Garfield's very key, and Garfield's sort of a conservative Democrat by my standards. You know, they may think they're somewhat progressive on certain issues, but they're afraid of me because they think I don't play nice in the sandbox and that kind of stuff. And I've said I've worked with the most extreme Republicans to pass things, the most centrist Democrats, and it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. I think you talk about the vision. You talk about where we need to be going. You talk about post-COVID, that all that elected officials are talking about is cutting budgets. that's going to kill vital services like teachers, firefighters, etc. And you talk about a wealth tax, where my opponent is talking about nothing. I mean, that's the feedback I get. He plays it super safe. So you say, where could we go? And I say, let's not talk about austerity, Democrats. Let's talk about a wealth tax. Now, there's 271. I've also put out there for over a month, 2 months now, that we need a wealth tax around real estate, residential real estate, over $5 million. That really resonates with people up here in the high country, because a lot of rich people have their mega McMansions up here. Michael Bloomberg just bought a $50 million, almost 5,000 acre ranch up in Meeker. So let's tax these people for 5 years to backfill our budget in Colorado. Talking like you hear them go, oh my God, we're spending all of our time trying to figure out what to cut. Well, why don't you figure out all your time on how to find money and make it rain, so that we can, and this is the important part, is that it's proven that when you use austerity, it takes 3 to 4 times longer to pull out of a depression. So instead of making it 6 years, 8 years, we can make it 2 years or 4 years. And what we're seeing right now in the State House is a proposal for repealing Gallagher by, I think it's Senator Hansen and a Republican. But they're not talking about what that means, other than it's going to make it easier, lower taxes for people. Well, this isn't the time to necessarily try to throw lowering taxes at Coloradoans. This is about progressive taxes that we need to do. And so leadership in creating a vision will excite people, both in the primary and in the general.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you very much, Arn.
Can I touch on that a little more? I'm trying to, if I talk for more than 4 minutes, hit me. But think about this, guys. Like, I've been interviewed by Conservation Colorado. I haven't been interviewed by Sierra Club yet. The AFL-CIO, the Southwest Carpenters Union, the Sunrise Movement, let's just say almost 10 endorsement type groups. And when you go into this and you're thinking to yourself a little bit like, I'm a representative. This isn't about voting your conscience. There's a funny thing about, politics. You want to win in order to be in power so you can do something. And so you're looking at, like, what is this district need in order to have a true representative? And when I was talking to the AFL-CIO people, I was trained, or advised rather, maybe trained too, but advised as to, you're not going to, they're not going to necessarily like your past stance. I got arrested in January with 38 people in the State House screaming ban fracking now at Jared Polis, okay, with the Sunrise Movement and Extinction Rebellion folks, and spent the night in jail. And the next time I saw Jared Polis a few weeks later, he shook my hand and he laughed and he said, "They let you out of jail?" And we laughed. I've known Jared before he was even ran for office, when we were both campaigning in 1999. So I have these long relationships with Dan Gibbs, who's the head of DNR, Jill Hunsaker-Ryan, who took my seat after she was the commissioner after me in Eagle County, who runs what it used to be HHS, Health and Human Services. Some of the Democrats don't like me because I like to turn on the lights and make the cockroaches run. But that doesn't mean that you can't. I like to expose BS, but that means I have to come back in with legislation. I can't just talk smack at people and point a finger. You got to play smart. And so when the AFL-CIO said, well, what are you going to do about this is the number one question every candidate gets up here. The Craig coal plant is closing. What are you going to do to find jobs for those people? And my answer goes something like this. It's the Republicans that told you that the Democrats were going to cost you your jobs. It's the Republicans that cost you your jobs, not the Democrats, because the Republicans were in power. And by the way, it's fracking that put out the coal industry because fracking was cheaper than coal. Okay, and now renewables is cheaper than fracking, and fracking's going out of business. And 450,000 Coloradoans just lost their jobs, and not just coal miners, but my friends are losing their jobs, so my businesses are losing their jobs. So that's why we need a Green New Deal in order to transition over to clean energy, because the IPCC report tells us we have 8 years left. And I've published articles. I met in Washington, D.C. on my own dime and my own time in D.C. last October with Ralph Nader, with Dave, who introduced me to David Friedman, who I lobbied with for a week, who's just died at 95, who was the architect of the Green New Deal, who said, under Nixon, the way we got out of this stuff is we just mandated it out of existence. The problem is we have people with 130 IQs working on a 110 IQ problem. This is about mandating this stuff out of existence. And then I met with Joe Neguse and AOC and Nadler's staff and many other people who are on the Climate Crisis Committee and said the same thing in so many words or less. Where's the bill? Where's the bill? Where's the bill? If there's no bill, people like us don't know how we could navigate the next couple of years. And they still didn't want to support me when I said, I'm trying to get you money, not help the pipe fitters union and the electricians hang on to $80,000 a year jobs that is essentially dinosaurs standing in puddles of water rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. But that's a force we have to recognize in this state, because if I get into the general, I have to find this balancing act from the soft money side. And the soft money side gave Hedges, not Hedges, help me out, Rutt Bridges' son, Jeff Bridges, right? He got $700,000 from soft money in his election, and he's at a Centennial. If I have $700,000 in soft money or $300,000 or whatever it is, that's huge in changing the outcome of an election that needs about $150,000 for me to raise, because the past candidate raised $100,000, and she's helping me with who she raised her money from. So that's, again, some more inside look into what's happening in Colorado politics.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Does anybody else have a question for Arn?
I do if no one else does.
Go for it.
Okay. I want to ask you one, Arn. It's awesome to see you, by the way, man. Good to see you.
Likewise.
You've got a lot of territory to cover during a period when people are still being told that they are safer at home. And from what I'm hearing from some of the soft money groups, like Working Families, resources are limited at a time when campaigns are being forced to rely on some relatively expensive outreach methods, like sending mailers or buying social media ads, online ads, things like that. We're always trying to overcome and do with people what our opponents are trying to do with money. So I'm curious about whether, if I've got progressives here in Denver, for example, where it's a safe district and people are looking for a way to make a difference, can they connect with your campaign or with that Our Revolution West Slope chapter? Or I don't know if Chris Jacks and the Weld County folks have endorsed. Are there groups like that that people here could connect with in order to do some text messaging or phone banking or sort of hands-on try to help your campaign?
Yes, and again, Brian's on this call. He's joined in, and you can email me at arn@arnmenconi.com or go to the website at arnmenconi.com. But again, I want to talk about the low-hanging fruit. 2.5 people have almost made 1,000 phone calls. We only need about 9,000 calls more. One's making calls 1 hour a day out of L.A. Brian, who's from Summit County, is right now, because of loss of work, up in Idaho. You know, so it could be anywhere that people are making these calls. And I don't want to take anything away from the other state Senate races or maybe the House seats, but this one is really within reach. Really, really within reach. Again, I'm a single dad who's on unemployment. I would not get in this race. When my friend called me as a campaign manager and said, you need to jump into this race, I said, I'm not running for anything again except away from the United States. And he said, no, I can show you how to win this. You know, my autobiography might as well be called I'll Burn That Bridge When I Get to It, you know, because I've made a few enemies. I've reached sort of political nirvana. I've pissed off Republicans, centrists, and progressives. And Mike has known this very closely. He gets a lot of phone calls from me when things are rough, and he's there for me all the time. He by the way, he was one of the first Coloradans I saw in Philadelphia when he walked out of the Dem exit in Philadelphia, and we were all weeping that night and protested until the sun came up. So we have that loyalty and affinity. Phone calling is just if two people can make an hour of phone calls a day, that will make a phenomenal difference. And letting people know, I mean, look at Tracer and look who's raising money and who's not raising money in the candidacies. I have run and not raised money just to get the word out there. This is not the time to be doing that. And there are Democrats who are on tickets who aren't raising money, okay? I love them, but they're not going to win because the hardest part about this job is cold calling strangers and asking them for a maximum of $400, and I've been doing that.
And can people go to your website to also sign up to do phone banking for you, or how do we do that?
All my contact information is there.
Okay, perfect. And I do have a link, just so you guys know, everybody who's on the call, there is a link on our agenda to Arn's website, so you can go look at that and sign up that way.
Another campaign strategy that I'm laying the groundwork for, because you know you're building the first floors of the campaign, so you have raising money, you have the PR and marketing infrastructure, so we have the websites, the newsletters together, and the social media and the ads, and then you have the field operation volunteers, things like that. So we've got that all done. The opponent doesn't have field operators. He's not making he only has like 30 people have donated to him. Is that I'm looking at I'm trying to stay away from the Zoom demics that are going on all over where people are just talking and maybe 20 people are watching. I'm trying to broaden it out, so that's why I brought in Josh Fox for an interview. You might want to share that one. People really liked the conversation, so that and then try to get on Josh's show, Staying at Home, which is on TYT now at 4 o'clock, I think, in New York time. It's a great. He's
2:30
brilliant. Here. He's brilliant. Okay, and yeah, and then see because and part of what we always have this dream like, oh well, Bernie's going to endorse me, AOC's going to endorse me, or our Revolut National, or Justice Democrats. Those are really heavy lists to do. But if I get in the general with Josh being a Bernie surrogate, the hope is that the dollars won't just come from Colorado. That we could have dollars. I mean, again, I jumped into this race because I thought, another reason I jumped into this race is, and Mike, back me up on this one, I thought I was going to be in Milwaukee again protesting for Bernie. And I wanted to make sure I had a platform, okay, just like I did 4 years ago when Dr. Cornel West endorsed me. And I was marching with him and Chris Hedges at the time. And so that we could talk about what's happening in this trifecta state that everyone thinks is progressive, yet Polis yesterday is calling for the National Guards to be used against people. I mean, this is nuts, right? Or don't you think this is crazy? That they can't
scary.
Just. Look at the Flint, the police chief in Flint met with the protesters, took his helmet off, and said he was going to march with them. That's how you diffuse things. Where is all of our Democratic state senators? They weren't down there yesterday. Leslie Jared was the only representative that's been down to the protest. I took my kids there. They said it was easier going there than Target with me. I mean, I shouldn't use Target this week. Let's say City Market, okay? I mean, where's spiritual Karen? Why isn't she down there, you know, and all of those type of things, so that we can neutralize the fear right now and talk about the possibility. So, you know, again, if I could bring in this national storytelling that brings in some dollars about how cheap it is, Bernie's, I doubt, is going to be able to run for president. Romanoff has an extremely heavy lift, and that means we got to look for state races in the country that could be won by a Bernie-crat. And I have to feel that I'm the person who's going to pull this off. You've got to think just like having raced mountain bikes, 100-mile mountain bikes. This is a hard race. Who wants to ride a bike for 100 miles? Not me, okay? But it's going to make us stronger. And it's going to get the message out there and keep it alive and start listening to this milk toast, blah, 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 nothing message coming out of Joe Biden or out of what might be Hickenlooper. Did you hear what Hickenlooper said a day or he was asked a question like, what's your opinion on Black Lives Matters? And his definition was Black Lives Matters means all lives matter. No, it doesn't.
Seriously. Well, yeah, that's crazy. But,
and another thing that I'm starting to notice in the last couple of weeks there's this sort of, and I don't know if this will be a third rail, but there's divisiveness going inside of our own progressives in Colorado. We're starting to do the circular firing squad. I saw this in the Green Party. The Green Party ate itself alive. I lit a match and set it on fire, leaving the Green Party because they would not support Amendment 69. And I said to them, I will blow up this party for not supporting Amendment 69. Okay? We have to support others. We have to support our teams, our loyalty. Nothing is perfect in politics. You could look at 271 and say, why is some of the money going to education? You could look at this kind of thing. Guys, stop it, okay? Get the ball down the field. Get the conversation and keep it alive because it scares the establishment. The establishment wants us to be saying things like, you know, whites shouldn't do this and black, and then this is going on and that's going on. Look at the coverage of the last couple of days. You know, they're putting it on the protesters. Okay. Now we know that there's agitators and infiltrators. Okay, that's a given. If I've been trained by the best of the best in terms of direct action, Medea Benjamin and Code Pink. You know. But she's like a ninja with this stuff. She's, Obi-Wan Kenobi. She just puts her hand across and everybody, like the Flint person doing. We could be doing that here, but we have to all work together. And we've got to put pressure on these kind of play it safe senators and representatives who won't go to a protest. It's not a protest. I was there. It's a rally. It's a march. Okay, a protest happens later at night, and why are we letting our government shoot tear gas at people? I think this is unconscionable, and we're starting to normalize this. in cities all over America in 3 days. There's a five-fold crisis going on right now, a five-fold crisis. We have a pandemic, we have a depression, we have whether or not we're going to have democracy, and progressives would say we never really had it in the first place, but what little is left with this fascist in the power and as our president, I'm not playing, I'm voting for Biden. I don't like him. I made a big mistake 4 years ago, with Hillary but I could never, has anyone been watching what Trump's been doing every single day? And then we have a crisis of transitioning over to renewables. Are we going to do that? Did that just get forgotten about because of the pandemic and the recession? And then we have a crisis of federalism where the federal government is saying, states, you're on your own. See ya.
Yeah. No,
so this is
totally agree.
This is like Noam Chomsky. This is the most critical time in the civilization when I was.
Yeah.
I love when you preach. I'm over here going, amen, hallelujah. Preach it, Arn.
Yeah.
Love you, dude.
Love it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are at the hour. We're actually a little bit past the hour. So I want to thank you so much, Arn, for coming on and talking and answering the questions that we've had, and for running and letting us know how we can support you. I want to keep in touch because I think your race is extremely important, and I think for that, again, I want to remind everybody that I do have a link to his website on our agenda. So you can go look at that up and find out ways to that you can volunteer for him, or it has all of his contact information. But thank you, Arn, for being here. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we can have you again in the future.
Love it. Thank you. Have a great Sunday, everyone.
Thank you, Arn.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Best of luck. I hope you win.
Yes. Thank you. For everybody else on the call, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I know we are at the hour. But just as a reminder, please make sure you look at the agenda and look at the Democratic platform so that we can get that list out to Mike and be in our Slack channel. I've gotten a few emails from some of you guys to add you to the Slack channel. I will be doing that as soon as we get off this call. But unless anybody has anything else we want to talk about right now, I think we can call it an end.
Thank you for doing this, Dana.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana.
Oh,
our pleasure.
Oh, of course. I'm just glad to talk to all of you guys, particularly in this time. I mean, we need to talk to other progressives right now, and to keep our sanity.
Exactly. Thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe.
All right, everybody.
Have
a good night. Arn, I have been recording this. I will send that to you, the recording, so that you can get that for your Facebook page.
I would love that. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Peace.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay,
bye. Mike.
Bye-bye.